Well, with us today on the Big App Show, we have a first-time novelist, although she has been published before, and a very interesting book, which we'll be talking about today. This is Treasure Island. The author is Sarah Levine. She joins us now via Skype. And are you in Chicago, Sarah?
I am. I'm in Chicago.
Well, welcome to the Big App Show. Nice book. I enjoyed reading it very much. It's twisted, though.
Yeah.
I know that you're a published author in short stories and essays, and I think that first of all translated into the book nicely because it was a quick read. It was just like, you know, boom. I actually finished the book before CNN announced Mitt Romney as the winner of New Hampshire, and they only had 11% of the vote, so that's how quick it went.
I'm so glad.
I'm sorry?
I'm glad. It's meant to be a quick read.
No, it really is. But what's interesting, first of all, the title just got me right off the bat because Treasure Island, I read Treasure Island, not with the 3 exclamation marks, which I'm sure has something to do with a copyright or trademark.
No, it just has to do with the narrator's enthusiasm for her subject.
Because what the protagonist in your book does is, well, there's a lot that's going on, but she essentially decides to live her life according to to a number of the core values she's taken from Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, and from there it just goes into so many like crazy directions. And this, to me, I think this is the kind of book that book clubs will love discussing. You know, what did it mean to you? What is this book saying?
I hope you're right. That would be great.
What are people getting out of it? What are they saying?
Well, it's been really exciting so far. The book, the bloggers get the book first, which is really kind of thrilling because you get, I think, a really wide response. And some people have been great fans of the book, which is thrilling and unexpected. And some people just hate the narrative voice, and it makes them really uncomfortable. What a difficult personality she is. So there's been some really good discussion on the internet about it.
I'll tell you what it kind of did for me is, as I'm reading this and knowing that the narrator, who doesn't actually have, I don't think we have a name. No, she's like 25, I think, right, out of college. The whole time I'm thinking, this is exactly like these dipshit kids, like these millennials. This is exactly how they live. This is exactly. I have a 21-year-old daughter, so I'm like, man, you know, this is exactly what that feels like. Do you have kids?
I do, but I have a 7-year-old daughter. Okay. So I haven't had an occasion to approach her about her slackerdom yet.
Don't worry, it goes on forever. It never stops, and just wait until they're in their 20s. But you've actually invented, I think, a new form of addiction. Essentially, what would we call it? A fictional author addiction or something like that?
Yeah, maybe. She's monomaniacal. It seems like a lot of people have one thing that they love, and it's probably not usually a 19th century boy adventure book. But it was really fun to pair up her sensibility with a book that seemed so incongruous, really, to a contemporary woman.
Did you read Treasure Island when you were young, or did you? I'm trying to figure out how you came up with this idea to basically do this.
Yeah, I hardly know. I don't think I read it when I was young. It may be that, as this is probably the only autobiographical part of the book, is I think maybe I did read a part of it in a reading book, a Lippincott reader maybe, in 5th grade, and didn't like it at all. And the way I came to it was I was studying essays, and Stevenson wrote beautiful essays, really funny essays. And he actually wrote a lot of nonfiction before he wrote his first novel at the age of 30. And so I was telling somebody that I liked Stevenson as an essayist, and he was an older guy, and he looked at me and he said, "Treasure Island." And his eyes lit up, and it was clear that there was all this reverence for this text that he had read in boyhood. And I just thought that was kind of hilarious because I was totally blank. Like, you said Treasure Island to me, and I felt nothing. So I went and I picked up the book just thinking I wouldn't like it, that I probably wouldn't relate. And have you read it recently, Adam? Or do you remember reading it as a kid?
I certainly remember reading it as a kid. And the thing that you actually put in the book was the black mark. You know, that made a big impression on me. It's like you got, oh no, I've got the black mark. You know, this is bad.
Yeah, and the black mark was so much fun to play with because the black mark is what, if, for people who haven't read it recently or read it ever, is how the pirates let you know that they're going to kick you out of the gang is they send you a little piece of paper with a black dot on it. And in one instance, it's torn out of the Bible. So Long John Silver says, "Oh, can I swear on the show?"
Yeah, of course, please. We encourage that.
You're so fucked because, poured a Bible to put the spot on. But because I was so interested in thinking about gender issues, I was thinking about the way girls are. Girls can be so mean to each other. And so they have their own ways of doing a black spot. And it's really just as subtle as that.
Well, and particularly sisters. And there's a lot of sister stuff in here. I actually had two sisters. I still have two sisters, but growing up with sisters, I mean, they are really, really mean to each other. Yeah,
well, I think the sibling relationship can be intense, and it's not written about as much in literature as it ought to be. I don't have a sister. I have a wonderful older brother, but I've observed sisters, and I think it's fascinating stuff.
And there's also a lot of real family, almost in a way dysfunctional family type relationships in the book. Any autobiographical stuff in there as well, or just because it feels like it's very, very recognizable to anybody in a way?
Yeah, no, it's not autobiographical. It felt like, because I was interested in boy adventure fiction, and in boy adventure fiction, usually what happens is boys cast off the burden of consciousness and they run around in the open air and they just do whatever the hell they want. They enact their desires. And Stevenson, when he wrote Treasure Island, he set out, because he thought this is really hard to write a novel, which it is. And he'd been trying to write novels for a long time, and he said all of them just sort of stopped. They were like watches that just stopped ticking after a certain number of pages. So what he did was he said, I'm going to lower the bar, and I'm going to write a book that's really easy, and it's going to have no psychology in it, just none. It's just going to be a boy and going in search of treasure. And he even made the ship a schooner because he thought that was the easiest kind of brig he could sail. So I thought, all right, let's take some of these elements, but let's put psychology into it. And instead of it being escape from the domestic, escape from women, it's going to be about a woman who actually ends up having to go further into the domestic, further into her family, and think about things about her sister, about her mother, that she would rather not think about. So it was sort of a way, it wasn't autobiographical, it was a way of saying, maybe there are different kind of adventures. There are adventures and risks that you take in the domestic sphere.
So again, how did you actually come up with the idea of that is the core of this book? I mean, did that just come to you as, oh, here's an interesting idea? Was it derived from some exercise you did or some other essay work?
I think, what it was is that I went and read Treasure Island after that older male colleague said he loved it.
Right.
And I thought, this is a damn good book. And I thought, it's funny that I am reading this book and that I like this book. And so then I didn't want to write an essay about it. I mean, I think that was my first thought was, I could just write an essay about Treasure Island. But this was at a point in my career where I really wanted to write fiction. And I was actually teaching at the University of Iowa in their nonfiction writing program. And so obliged to write nonfiction. But I was itching to do something different. And part of what appealed to me was to have a really off-kilter voice. And when you mentioned her, it's a little crazy. So it had to be fiction. And so I think I've been reading a lot of Thomas Bernhard. I love Nabokov. I also love Henry James and Virginia Woolf and novelists of consciousness. So I just thought, okay, let's not do this in my voice at all. Let's just have somebody love this book and see how badly she can behave.
So in listening to you, essentially what happened is we had Robert Louis Stevenson write a book with no necessary deep psychological meaning, just an adventure book, and you took that and you actually extrapolated out of it a whole bunch of psychological meaning.
Yeah, and I thought I took so much heart from the fact that he was having trouble writing a novel. I hadn't actually tried. I was struck by how I was identified as a writer for so long, and I had been working on sentences, doing short prose genres from the aphorism to the short story to the essay to the prose poem, but I had never tried a novel. And I thought, I ought to try a novel. I'm not even like Stevenson, who tried them and they just didn't go anywhere. I haven't tried this. So I thought, I will try this, but I was encouraged by the fact that it wasn't easy for Stevenson and that he had to sort of whittle it down. So for me, it was the Stevenson sort of provided an armature, probably, something to work with as a kind of scaffolding to build a novel. Because it's hard to write a novel. And,
well, you can be really proud of the result, and I think you've done something very novel, to pun intended, but a real interesting style. Would you want to continue doing that? I have some ideas for you for some boys' books that you could do the same thing with, which would be outstanding. Have you ever read Tom Swift?
Oh, I haven't read Tom Swift, but a couple people mentioned Tom Swift to me when I was first starting the project.
Huh.
Tell me about Tom Swift.
Well, Tom Swift, these books were written. Actually, I think they're you can get them for free now through Gutenberg.org. Tom Swift, like 100 years ago, these books were written. It's a series of books. Tom Swift and his amazing hovercraft. Tom Swift and his underwater submersible. So it's his father and son, but it's about the son, Tom Swift, and he invents stuff, and he invents these, robots and flying machines and all kinds of stuff, which 100 years ago was like, how could you even fathom it? Of course, but now it's really come true. But he always had an adventure that went along with that, and there would be some, he would solve some mystery or something else. But it was that perfect combination of fantastical devices that he would build in his workshop with his dad, and then while they were building it, just happened to save the universe. It's an excellent series. It wrote a lot of them. I think there must be 30 or 40 of them.
Yeah, I know. I think I'll read those just for my own pleasure, but I don't think that my next novel will be about boy adventure fiction. It's possible that it'll have some other generic twist. And I'm looking at the thriller now and think that would be fun to play with. But I think I'm done with boy stuff for a while. Okay,
yeah, you can go play with your girly stuff. I get it. Point taken. But you've cracked it. You've cracked it. I mean, you've definitely done it. It's a really good novel. I think the narrative voice is fantastic. You've got one kind of like sex thing. I'm always looking for the good sex stuff. It was like shocking when you come across it, you're like, oh, okay, whoa, all right. I won't give it away, no spoiler, obviously, but wow, I mean, that was pretty good.
I shocked Adam Curry. That's wonderful.
Well, I wasn't shocked by what was happening, but I wasn't expecting it at that point. I'm just like, whoa, okay, that's interesting, but also, it's real.
Yeah, but and that's sort of what I was trying to talk about earlier about the generic shift, is that you think maybe you're in adventure fiction because the narrator wants to be in adventure fiction, but then you're pulled into domestic, and so it feels like a little bit of Philip Roth, maybe. It's like it takes you to an unexpected place, I hope.
So where do you take it from here? I mean, so now you're a novelist, you're official. People are raving about your work. They're all saying, great new voice on the scene, great words coming out of Chicago. You said you're going to do a more of a thriller?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've been really wrapped up in the publicity for this book, which has been a lot of fun. And so I haven't had as much time to work on the next novel, but I'm brewing something. It's just too soon to say. And I have to say also, there are some outtakes, some things that didn't make it in the book that were very raunchy. And so I'm kind of fantasizing about maybe publishing the bits that didn't make it into the book. That I don't know if they'd be in a book form, or it'd probably be better on the internet. But the parrot goes into heat in the earlier draft. And so there's a lot more sex that ultimately sacrificed in order to have the speed of the book as it is now.
Well, we need the director's cut, totally. See, now you've got, tell me there was some lesbian sex in there, and then I'm going to force you to publish it on the internet.
It had it all. It's all there. But, writers have to be ruthless, and I wanted you to be able to read it, if possible, in one sitting, or in two sittings anyway. It was meant to be something that you just immerse yourself in, and perhaps feel trapped in that kind of kooky voice. So yeah, maybe the director's cut is next. I got to think about that.
Well, Sarah, I really want to thank you for taking the time today. Congratulations. This is it's taken off like a rocket. That's really, really good. And I definitely look forward to what you're going to do next. And hopefully you'll have time to come back on the show and talk about it then as well.
Thank you. It's been really fun. Thanks for talking to me.
So the book is Treasure Island by Sarah Levine. If you want a copy, all you have to do is tap on the blue button you see flashing right there. That'll take you into the Amazon store, and you can pick up your very own copy from there. I think it's on Kindle as well, or is it just a soft cover for right now?
It's not yet, but if you go onto Amazon, you can click Tell the Publisher that you want this book on Kindle.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll get on it.
Although I have to be honest, I like the physical book form myself personally, and it's now you can tell, you can see all the places where I went back and wait, what back?
The French flaps are beautiful. Europa Editions, my publisher, always does these beautiful French flaps.
Is that what that's called, a French flap? Why is it a French flap?
I don't know. That's what it is, though. I made sure I found out what it was called because I wanted my agent to negotiate for it, but it turned out they were going to do it anyway. So I didn't have to play hardball for those French flaps, but they're really nice because you can mark your place too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I didn't have to mark, as I said, I read it in one sitting. But there you go, French flaps and all, Treasure Island. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the Big App Show. Good luck, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.